Friends, the story begins in 1986, Okinawa, Japan, where a kung fu teacher, Sensei Miyagi, is telling his student Daniel how his ancestor, while fishing, accidentally drifted from Japan to China. There, he met a kung fu master named Sensei Han, and that's where he learned all their kung fu from. They then brought it back to Japan, and ever since, there's been a deep bond between the Miyagi family and the Han family. Then, the scene shifts to 2025, China, at the Han School of Kung Fu. Here, Master Han Shifu is teaching kung fu to children, and among them is a boy named Li Fang, practicing diligently. But then, Li's mother arrives, stopped by a little girl who says, "Slow down." You see, Li's mom didn't like him fighting. She tells Master Han, "Please give my son back. I've already lost one son because of kung fu. I don't want to lose another." Li's mom had gotten a new job in New York, so she was planning to take Li with her. She wanted to keep Li away from violence. So, Li travels with his mom to New York, and there he meets a pizza shop owner named Victor, and his daughter Mia. Mia talks to Li nicely. The next day, they run into each other again on the street, and Li joins Mia for some shopping. On the way, he notices a karate school, but Mia tells him not to train there. And then, the karate master threatens Mia, saying, "Tell your dad to return my money." That same man goes inside and tells Mia's ex-boyfriend Connor that she's been hanging out with someone else. Later, Mia and Li go to a shop, and Li speaks in Mandarin, getting Mia a big discount. He tells her, "I can teach you this language too." The next day, they spend time together, with Mia showing Li around all of New York. But her scooter breaks down, so the two get on the subway. There, they run into Connor, Mia's ex. Connor asks Li, "Do you even know kung fu?" Mia says, "Connor, just leave us alone." But Connor attacks Li. Mia brings the injured Li to their pizza cafe, where Victor hides his injuries from Li's mom so she wouldn't find out. That's when we learn Victor used to be a fighter too. He was once one of the best boxers in the city. But the very next morning, Li's mom finds out about his injuries, and reminds him again about their no violence rule. She introduces him to a smart boy named Alan, hoping Li would focus only on his studies. But that night, Li sits remembering his older brother, and how they used to practice kung fu together. His brother was teaching him a move called the dragon kick. Then the next day, Connor starts bullying Li again, and this time, a fight breaks out. Li thought he could defeat Connor, but Connor was much stronger. Li even used the dragon kick his brother taught him, but it didn't work. He got humiliated in front of everyone, and Connor challenged him to a tournament. This was the biggest karate tournament in the city, but Li ignored the challenge. Later that evening, Li sees some men coming near Mia's broken scooter. They were actually there to beat up Victor. Li fights them off alone using kung fu, and drives all three attackers away. Victor, who saw everything, says, "Can you teach me this too?" Turns out, Victor had borrowed money from some dangerous people, and now he wanted to learn kung fu, so he could fight in the boxing ring again, something he gave up after Mia was born. Victor wanted to fight again and earn some money to pay off his debt, but Li refused. He said, "I need to stay away from violence. Something happened in my past that changed my life." Still, Li goes to ask Shifu if he should teach Victor kung fu. Shifu says, "If kung fu can do something good in that man's life, then go ahead and teach him." So, Li begins teaching Victor kung fu. At first, Victor hesitates to spar with him, but quickly realizes Li is way more skilled than he expected. Eventually, Mia finds out and gets mad at both of them. But Victor convinces his daughter, "I can do this." So, Li starts training Victor right at the pizza shop, while making pizzas, while riding the train, even using shop items to practice. Li also begins working at the cafe, and Mia learns Mandarin from him. But someone else was watching them, Jacob. Meanwhile, back at Li's house, his mom is seen sleeping beside her late son's photo. Li too starts thinking about his brother. Victor walks in and asks, "What are you doing up so late?" That's when Li tells the real story from 1 year ago, how he and his brother were coming home after winning a tournament, when they were attacked by a man who had lost in that tournament. The man and his gang overpowered them, and stabbed Li's brother right in front of him. Li couldn't do anything, His brother died in his arms. Victor says, Lee, you have to come out of this trauma yourself, or it will destroy you. Next day, Mia invites Lee to go somewhere, but he says, I have a test. I'll think about it. When he gets there later, he sees Mia standing with her ex-boyfriend Connor, and Lee is heartbroken. He starts ignoring Mia. She asks, what happened? Lee says, why don't you ask Connor? Mia replies, nothing happened. He just tried to flirt with me yesterday, but I ignored him. Lee and Mia are about to kiss, but Victor walks in saying, not on the day of my fight. That day, Victor enters the boxing ring. His opponent starts off strong, dominating the match. But gradually, Victor gets into his rhythm. He uses the moves Lee taught him, and nearly wins. But suddenly, the other boxer attacks illegally and injures Victor. Lee freezes, just like he did when his brother was attacked. Lee and Mia rush Victor to the hospital, and all Lee can think about is his brother. Lee's mom sees him there and says, why are you getting involved in all this again? Now, all of this makes Lee even more upset. He stops taking Shifu's calls. Back at Lee's house, someone breaks in. Lee fights him, but it turns out to be Shifu. Shifu looks at the tournament poster in Lee's room. He and Lee go to meet Victor the next day. Lee apologizes to him. Victor says, this wasn't your fault. Then Shifu says, we're going to help you. He tells Lee to participate in the tournament. To prepare, Shifu goes to the Miyagi dojo, where he meets Daniel. Shifu says, I need your help. One of my students has learned Han Kung Fu from me, but to win this tournament, he also needs to learn Miyagi karate. Daniel refuses, saying he can't come to New York, but Shifu just walks away saying, you'll come. Then the story shifts back to Lee and Alan. Lee says, I don't even have a place to train. Alan takes him to a rooftop garden, and Shifu starts Lee's training there. He even talks to Lee's mom. And a few days later, Daniel shows up to help Lee. Daniel and Shifu together start training Lee in Han's Kung Fu and Miyagi's karate. Only by mastering both could Lee win the tournament. During this, Lee also reconciles with Mia. Soon, the tournament begins. Lee wins his first match easily. Daniel and Shifu keep teaching him new moves. Meanwhile, Connor is also advancing, and both reach the finals. But right before the final, Connor's men attack Lee, and Shifu and Daniel fight them off. Everyone knows that beating Connor won't be easy. He fights like a tiger. Daniel says, I've fought opponents like him before. We need to trap this tiger. Lee says, I already used my dragon kick on him once. It didn't work. Daniel says, perfect. We'll use that to bait him. He explains, you'll act like you're using the dragon kick again. Connor will recognize it and counter. But that'll be the trap. Daniel adds, you'll strike underneath during his counter. But this move was tough to master. It took many days of practice, while Connor was also training hard. On the final day, Lee's mom comes to support him. She says, your brother would be proud of you. Daniel and Shifu prep Lee for the final fight. As they walk out, Lee remembers his brother again. The rule is, first to 8 points wins. The fight begins, and Connor completely dominates, scoring 4 points in a row, while Lee is stuck at 0. Somehow, Lee pushes back and scores 1. Then starts making a comeback. The score is now tied, and soon Lee takes the lead. But then Connor knocks Lee to the ground. The referee starts the countdown. Lee remembers Victor, his brother, everything, and gets up just in time. Now, it all comes down to one last point. This is when they use the tiger trap. Lee shows the dragon kick. Connor recognizes it and attacks, but falls right into the trap. Lee uses the perfect counter and wins the match. Connor, enraged, attacks Lee again, but Lee stops him. He was about to hit him back, but remembers Shifu's words and holds back. He even helps Connor get up. And with that, our story comes to an end. But there's a special cameo at the end. Lee sends a pizza to Daniel at the Miyagi dojo. That's when we see Johnny, Daniel's old friend. Looking at the pizza, Johnny says, dude, we should totally open a pizza shop. There's good money in it. So friends, how did you like this story? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.